to see and realize that we only have the now. We can't control the future and we can't change the past. And so if you're given a diagnosis or you're given a life event, actually sitting in that moment and just drinking in, actually, it's not how I can't do anything about it, but it's how actually I choose to respond to this situation that will make the difference between whether I sink or swim. And that is probably why I'm still here now.
I am Lisa Roers, former executive coach turned podcaster and digital course creator. Just a few years ago, my typically unwavering optimism was put to the test when my autoimmune system went sideways and handcuffed my dreams to positively impact the world. Fast forward, though, through years of failed experiments, dozens of doctors, and countless hours of research, and I am now a healthy, thriving CEO of a business that is positively impacting the world by empowering people to exchange fear for fortitude and dis-ease for durability. I created the Sunshine Cafe podcast to give you strategies to be your best self-advocate so you can focus on the things which light you up. If you're looking for hope and encouragement to live a life you love, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. Today our guest is Lucinda Roberts, and she's a talented author and artist and podcast host from the United Kingdom. Her podcast is called This Healing Feeling, which tells the story of her search for all the different healing modalities which might work on what she's been told since she was 17 is an incurable autoimmune disease. Lucinda's positive outlook and optimism is encouraging, and she offers an inspiring example for us all. I hope you'll enjoy the conversation. Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Lisa with the Sunshine Cafe podcast, and I have the most wonderful friend with me here today. And look at, we also have her little fur friend here behind you. I love that, Lucinda. That's awesome. Lucinda is like a sister spirit all the way over in the United Kingdom, but just a beautiful soul. And you guys are really in for a treat to hear from this lovely woman today.
Well, first of all, thank you for that incredible introduction. I hope I can do it even a little bit of justice. And thank you for including Lucky in the background. For anyone who ever sees the video, there's a Black Panther behind me, a miniature one.
Well, Lucinda has a beautiful story about healing. And we were chatting just a little bit before I hit the record button. And we were talking about whether or not we get a diagnosis or whether or not we get a label put on our ailment. It's not necessarily a disease, but is definitely a lack of ease or a dis-ease in our system. And I think sometimes not having a diagnosis is a blessing. While our systems and the healthcare systems, both the United States as well as the UK, requires that in order to get things paid for and certain medicines prescribed and whatnot, sometimes I think it's a beautiful gift to not have that label put on us. And I think the fallacy is that we're supposed to live in this world with no issues and no problems. That is just the general nature of our lives here. Mm-hmm. And you are certainly no stranger to those kinds of challenges. So tell our listeners a little bit about some of the journey that you've been through and the beautiful successes and challenges along the way, maybe a couple of the things that you do to pull yourself through those hard things.
Well, bless you. Well, I think firstly, and I'll just mention this while I keep it fresh in my mind because occasionally I am forgetful. There will be people listening to this who have been given diagnoses, and there will be people who won't. And sometimes, as you say, to not have the diagnosis, this is a very scary, fearful period. But I think what I'm learning now on the other side of a sort of a part of my story is that life is chapters. And if it was smooth sailing and nothing ever happened, nothing ever challenged us, nothing ever went wrong, or there wasn't ever some sort of little quirk or mini drama. I don't do big drama at all, just mini drama, little challenge. It wouldn't be called life. It would be called something like easy ride or something, or easy, or like, bleh. It's not, it's called life. And life gives us these experiences to offer us expansion. And what I've found in my story so far is that despite at the age of 17 being given a diagnosis, which at the time totally floored me, I did manage through the kindness of the words of Eckhart Tolle to see and realize that we only have the now. We can't control the future and we can't change the past. And so if you're given a diagnosis or you're given a life event, actually sitting in that moment and just drinking in, actually, it's not how I can't do anything about it, but it's how actually I choose to respond to this situation that will make the difference between whether I sink or swim. And that is probably why I'm still here now. At 17, I'd had been as a child, I'd say quite sickly at times, not sort of sickly like, hospital sickly, but kind of a malaise. And my father very early on said about the story of the boy who called wolf. And I was like, well, maybe it's in my head. Maybe I'm just a bit like, flaky. And so at this age of 17, we got home from being out to a phone message on the answer phone with the local doctor saying, we're a bit concerned about Lucinda's blood test. We'd like to get her in as soon as possible. And fortunately in the UK, the NHS, I was sped through the system, and within a few months, I found myself being tested for various different diseases and illnesses. One of which was I had some bone marrow taken, which for anyone who's had that experience, yep, we stand together. It's probably one of the most painful things you can have done.
Ouch. Oh my gosh.
It was just horrid. And the nurse who was holding my hand was crying, and I was trying to be brave. So I was like, no, I'm not going to cry. And afterwards I was like, yeah, that was quite painful. But to me, so many of the experience I was having, the blood tests, the bone marrow, I almost was stepping away from. It wasn't like an out of body experience, but it was like I was watching what was happening to me because I was a child. I was just this being passed from pillar to post and feeling unwell, but not knowing why. I suddenly find myself in the office of a doctor in central London, and the gentleman across the table looked at me and he said, well, to me and my parents on the other side of me, you have an incurable autoimmune disease. You will never be able to drink because your liver has stage 4 cirrhosis, that of a hardened drinker. There is no chance of recovery. The liver will not heal itself. You will be on medication for the rest of your life. It is likely you will not be able to have children. And for the foreseeable future, you mustn't be more than 2 hours away from a hospital because of your steroid taking. And I think I said about the life insurance, didn't I? Did I mention the life insurance? They said, oh, and you won't get life insurance because if you've got an incurable disease, well, you just won't. I mean, like, why are you telling a 17-year-old about life insurance? Who knows? But hey, it seemed important. And I sat there and literally, I felt like the floor had fallen away from me because these were all terrible things to be told. And then he's paused for a second and he said, and by the age of 30, your liver will fail and you will need a liver transplant or you'll die. And I was 17. And I walked out of that hospital and I just burst into tears. And my mother burst into tears. And my father went to get the car and we started driving away. And my mother was just like, Lucy, what can we do? What can we do? And I just said, nothing. There is nothing we can do. This is what it is. And I just was like decimated. But as I mentioned before, I had fortunately got into self-help books, and one of them, The Power of Now. It was there at the right time. And I've reread it since, and there's so much more in it than that kind of crucial sort of succinct argument. But that's what I needed to hear at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to go out and live my life. And I spent the next however many years it is between 17 and 32, because I got an extra 2 years on my liver. Thank you, ex-liver, and on to the new one now. um, I actually just went out and lived the life that I thought I wasn't going to live after 30. So I had an opportunity to move to America. I moved out there to San Francisco, had an amazing 3.5 years in San Francisco. When that ended, I came back to the UK. I did various things in the UK. And every decision I made with the kind of the feeling that today could be my last day. My, the egg timers with the sand coming through them. It just felt like that was just emptying. And then I got to 31 and another relationship had ended because I was incapable of having relationships. And only later would I find out that was because I had a hepatic encephalopathy, which is where toxins, which are normally filtered by the liver, go to the brain and they make you pretty much bipolar, manically paranoid, depressed and anxious and all the rest of it. So every relationship was doomed to fail, but no one had bothered to tell me I might have this thing. And when this relationship failed, I moved back home and was just ticking along, trying to find work, even though I was really quite sick. And then my liver started to fail. And people don't talk about liver failure in the same way people don't really talk about cancer, pain, and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because they don't want to scare people.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a really challenging time because your body starts to behave in ways that are inexplainable and yet painful. And you know that it's all heading in one direction. And that's to the point where either you will be put on the transplant list or you won't. And I'd always been adamant that I wouldn't have a transplant. I had incredibly low self-worth. I didn't believe that I'd made my parents or myself proud. I hadn't gone out and got a good job. I hadn't had a family. I hadn't sort of paid proper taxes and supported the country and done all the things that I should have done. And I thought, no, I'm just not going to accept one. I'm just going to die. That's going to be it. You know, the years I get are the years that are a blessing. And then I get to 31 and I have this moment of realization that I'm in love with life.
Mm-hmm.
I have the most incredible, supportive family who love me unconditionally, despite the fact that in my dark days, I can be drunk and abusive because I'm so scared and no one understands. I have an incredible sister who, even though she's a little sister, even little sister's taller than me, is honest, is caring, and tells me how it is and slaps me when I need to be slapped. And I have the most amazing dogs in the family, which really helps because actually having animals, I think you can relate. It's unconditional love, and they'll come and they'll sit and they'll lean on you, and they're always enthusiastic to see you. And when you
Mm-hmm.
start sofa days, and when your body swells up and your feet are so large and swollen that you're kind of like a beached whale on a sofa, the dogs will come and lie on you and lick your hands and lick your face and try and kind of
Yeah.
wake you up out of this kind of
Wag their tail.
exactly, just be
Yeah.
enthusiastic. And so I said, okay, fine, right. I'm gonna say yes to this transplant. And there was a general sigh of relief from my family who didn't particularly want to lose me at 31. And I went to have the tests in London and it all seemed to be going quite well until they said, well, the thing is, at the same time as we diagnosed you with your autoimmune disease, we also found that pituitary tumor. And the pituitary is just situated in the skull. I'm not going to be very good at explaining it, so go and Google it. But this pituitary gland had actually swollen, and they've monitored it ever since that point, and it's never increased in size. But the anaesthetist said, well, we're a bit concerned that when we knock you out, you might not come round from it.
Oh,
And I was like, well, from my perspective, as someone who was having terrible stomach cramps, who looked like a beached whale, who was feeling like generally like a death's door, I was like, you're worried about me not coming round? I'm thinking that could be quite nice. We just go to sleep and, you're just taken. Anyway, they sent me home and they told me they'd call me. And I'm lying on my parents' sofa and I think to myself, why didn't I kind of talk more about this when I was younger? Why didn't I say to more people, look, I've got this disease. This could be why I'm sick. This is why my behavior's a bit weird. Why don't we grow up having conversations about organ donation? And I'd actually had the privilege of working for 6 months as a funeral director in one of my little stints of having a job. And it was at that point that I'd really faced the fear of death because for a while I'd been scared. I'd been scared of the fact that it was such an unknown, that there might be pain, and that when I was gone, like what would happen then and what would happen to my family. And when I was working as a funeral director, I saw that actually, and this is my personal opinion, For the people who die and pass on, wherever they might go. But actually, the spirit and the memory that you meet and you hold and you love, that can stay with you for the rest of your life, because people can have such an impact on you. They can teach you so much. And even when you're walking a walk and you don't have your grandmother with you, or you don't have your uncle with you, you can still have conversations, because that person has been such a powerhouse in your life. And so I thought to myself, hang on, we're not talking about death because we're scared of it. And we're not talking about organ donation because we're scared of that as well. And when people are trying to have the conversations about organ donation with people who've lost people, that's a really bad time to do it. So what we need to do is we need to be talking about it young. We need to be talking to children about it. And I'd always loved stories and writing and being creative. So on my parents' sofa, I dictated into my phone the idea for a little book called Lucy's Liver Transplant, a story about organ donation. And the story came from the fact that when I'd been in San Francisco, I'd had some acupuncture and they'd stuck a needle into my head. And when they'd done that, I kind of went and met my liver and we had a chat. And that's
I love that visual. Went and talked to my liver for a while.
well, and it's the most ridiculous thing. But I'd been like, they always say liver is where you have all this anger and your anxiety. And I'd been so angry at my liver because it had failed me. I mean, I hadn't been a drinker when I was little. So when I was 17 and diagnosed with this liver that had, this cirrhosis, I was just bemused. And I'd had ambitions of becoming a barrister. I'd wanted to help people who had difficulties with property law and challenges in this country. And because of the medication I'd gone on to, I'd ended up sleeping underneath my desk at school. My grades had slipped. I hadn't done as well at university as I'd wanted to. My relationships had been challenged. There was so much that I thought that I hadn't achieved, and it was all down to my liver. And when I met my liver, we met up and I said, look, I realize I've been quite hard on you because I don't think you actually chose to fail, but can you understand where I'm coming from? And my liver pretty much said, well, yeah, no, and I absolutely understand and I hear you, and I'm sorry as well. And so I said, I'm sorry. And my liver said, I'm sorry. And
It had a restart. You just restarted your liver relationship.
we did. We had this amazing restart. And when that happened, I didn't really think much about it. But when I wanted to write this children's book, I thought, actually, really and truly, children need to just kind of be able to talk to their organs and talk to people and talk to their friends. And so the story, the summary of it, a short version, is the little girl, she gets sick, she's just playing out in the garden, then her liver walks in and starts talking to her, and then some other of her body organs, and it's explained to her exactly what an autoimmune disease is and how there's a confusion, there's an attack on the body, and no matter how much the body tries to protect you, sometimes it's a counteroffensive and it's not going to work, and at that point, things need to change. And since the point of actually, like, investigating transplants, I now know that actually there are so many different pathways people can go on when they have problems and challenges with their liver, that when I was facing my battle, my kind of challenge, I wasn't aware of the things you could do to reduce stress, like tapping. Or, I mean, I knew about acupuncture, but I didn't know you could have a self-care tool that was good doing it. I didn't know about fasting. I didn't know how actually by stopping eating for periods of time, you can actually allow the organs to do what they wanted to do without confusing them. I didn't know about sugar. I didn't know about hormetic stress and cold water. I didn't know about all of these amazing self-care tools that are now widely talked about. And so lying on the sofa, I wrote this book and I thought, I can't afford to put it into print, but I'll get it onto the Kindle. And I did. And I found an illustrator and I used the last of my savings and I got it illustrated, got it out there. And I thought, well, that's great. Now, even if I don't get the transplant, I've done something. I've done a little something to actually help raise awareness and encourage conversations. And 2 days after that, I get a phone call and they say, "Okay, we're phoning to tell you we're happy to proceed. We're gonna put you on the transplant list." And I was like,
Wow.
"Wow,
Wow.
wow, wow, wow." Just there'd been so much, like, acceptance, I suppose, when I knew that if they said no to me, that was just it. And I just needed to make sure that I said my goodbyes, and I tried to do as much as I could to just get the painkillers that would help. But when actually I got the call and they said, "Oh, actually, we're gonna put you on the transplant list," I just thought, "Oh my goodness, this is just incredible. This is my second chance." And when I got admitted as a neutropenic candidate into my local hospital, so I can't say it, neutropenia anyway, it's where your white blood count gets so low that you're very at high risk of infection. I ended up in this single occupancy room, because in the NHS in the UK, you're normally in big rooms of people. It's not like in America where you get single rooms. And I was looking out the window and I got so, so sick, it all got blurred. But as I started to get better, everything came into real high definition, and I started to see the different colors of autumn, the oranges, the gold, the burnt sort of umber and the siennas. And I thought, actually, yes, this illness is teaching me again how important and how beautiful life is, and how every moment has beauty to it. Every person has a story. Every experience is something you can learn from. And so then I began this wait, and I waited for 9 months. And then I had a phone call very early in the morning, which I missed. And I picked it up and it said no number. And I thought, oh God, that wasn't a good call to miss. And then I phoned my house phone because I was with my parents. And my mother answered the phone and just went, "Oh, it's for you." Hands it over to me. And they said, "We think we've got a liver. Would you like to come in?"
Would you like to come in?
Oh, I'm not today. I'm thinking,
You know, I'll
oh,
wash my hair and have some
yeah,
coffee. Maybe I'll think about it.
yeah, I know I can get back to you, I think, in 20 minutes. I'll just weigh up the pros and cons. And I was like, yes, yeah, absolutely. Yes, please, I'm coming in.
Mhm.
And so this car came from my father and we drove into London as the sun rose. And it was like someone had just got this paint box and got those oil pastels and
Oh,
just slashed them, the yellows and the pinks and the oranges. And I was like,
wow.
this is
Again.
so pretty. And like it was all so quiet because it's so early. And we got into the hospital and there was a bit of a kerfuffle because they sent me for an X-ray. They didn't tell me the X-ray department was shut downstairs. I had to go upstairs. But when I went upstairs, on the wall was this giant picture of a panda. And I was like, okay, that actually is what I needed to see. Because when I was growing up, it sounds a bit, bit ridiculous. My parents were quite comfortably off, and they managed to employ nannies and pay them as like through the books as kind of freelance agents because they were quite busy. And the nannies would always take my sister and I to London Zoo, and my favorite animal, my sister's favorite animal, is the panda.
Oh my
And we
goodness.
just love pandas.
Yeah.
And so when I saw this giant panda, I was like, "Oh, okay, actually, yeah, it's gonna be okay. Even if I don't come through this, I know I can just trust in something in that." I come from a family where, because my father grew up as a Catholic, he's not particularly religious, and my mother and I are more sort of spiritual. But for me, I've always felt there was so much that couldn't be understood that I thought, actually, when I go into this experience, if I just give up all power, all of my ego, all of my thoughts and everything else, and I just lay back and I say, okay, what will be, it will happen for the right reasons and the right purpose. And so they wheeled me down a corridor with my notes, which were like this thick. I
Wow.
was like, God, I hope they don't lose those. And signed a form that said, I accepted the repercussions of whatever came about. And these big doors swung open and I went into this blackness. And it was all chat, chat, chat. And the anaesthetician said, right, you put a mask on your face, and I'd like you to count penguins, and I'd like you to count backwards from 14. And I went, okay. And I thought, I really hope this isn't one of the things where I don't go to sleep or I wake up. And I went 14, 13.
Out.
Yeah,
Wow.
just out completely. And the thing I knew, I was waking up in intensive care, at which point I thought I was blind because they'd taken my contact lenses out. So I thought that they'd,
Oh.
that's like, oh no, don't say they took my sight. Not remembering that I'd been blind when I went in there anyway. And then began the period of recovery. And we have met at a really interesting time because the book is now in 9 different translations. I think it's The Kindness of Strangers on the Kindle. So, and the plan is over the next couple of years to get it into every language that is possible. But I'm 6 years post-transplant, and the autoimmune disease is still in my body. And when I went to have my transplant, I actually was so sick, I thought that my new liver would cure me, but it hasn't. And please understand that for no second am I not grateful, because I have half the liver of a 21-year-old young lady. And it was very handy that Brexit hadn't happened, because her family aren't English. And so I can't write them long letters. Telling what happened. It's just, thank you very much. I'm very happy with my liver. Hope you're well. But I'm at a point in my life where I actually kind of go, hang on. I know that the NHS sees me as a success because I'm alive and I'm not getting as sick as I used to because I'm immune suppressed. But I do believe there's room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
That's why at the end of last year, I decided that actually I was going to start my project for the foreseeable future, which was healing. And I've learned a lot in the past couple of months, because healing is a journey and it might not actually be a destination, and the diagnosis I might never have. And maybe actually that's fine, as we were discussing earlier. But actually it's about me finding the things, the self-care tools and practices that can help others as well as helping myself, and hopefully sharing them with as many people as possible so that they can get taster experiences of what's out there.
Yeah.
Because for me, I mean, I only discovered EFT, which is tapping on acupressure points, through a counselor therapist. And if stress is your kryptonite, actually, that's something you need to have in your life, because yeah, you can pop a Prozac and you pop a diaphragm or whatever, Valium or whatever. But actually being able to self-care, using self-care tools is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why hopefully the beginning of next year in the spring, I will be starting my podcast, which is going to be called This Healing Feeling. And the idea being that to heal, we need to believe that we can heal. We need to feel, to actually try and visualize and believe that we are healing, actually kind of experience it through creative visualization. That's how we will heal. Believe it, feel it, achieve it. And so that's what I aim to do.
Yeah. And you know, anybody who thinks that that particular, I have to believe it in order for it to happen, is a fallacy. I mean, how many times do they employ that kind of idea in sports world, where
Yeah.
you visualize beating that mile time, you visualize winning that game, you visualize the ball going into the basket. So why is it such a stretch for us to visualize our liver healing or our autoimmune healing or whatever ailment it might be that we are dealing with? The brain is so powerful.
Incredibly powerful. And it's interesting when you start to sort of like say, hang on, I want to see the evidence in the world of how this can actually be. If you go onto social media, if you go onto the internet, you do start to see stories which inspire hope. And
Mhm.
I've started to meet people who are in all different stages of their healing journey, and they may be on their healing journey for the rest of their life, but they have chosen to take patient responsibility, which is my kind of little phrase that I like to coin, and step into the driving seat of their experience. When you get a health challenge, you can either sit into it and kind of go, oh, I don't like this, and just your body language goes and you don't care and you're not interested and it's all a bit too much. And I don't know, it's all. Or you could be like, hang on, well, look, there's all these books and there's podcasts and there's people I can meet and I can learn things and I can do things and I can have energy and I can have a cat that's crazy and dogs that are enthusiastic.
Mhm.
Suddenly, actually, you realize that, yes, when we're young, we believe in magic and then we're told magic doesn't exist because people show us that tricks can actually be done. But actually, magic does exist, but it actually exists in place of the power of the brain because what we say to ourselves is heard by the brain, by the cells, by the organs, and it all just goes, well, if you say we're healing, we're going to get onto the healing.
Exactly.
Um, it sounds madness, it sounds crazy, but I actually do think that there's enough examples in the world now to suggest it does work.
It is so true. So true. And it's actually one of the reasons that the bedside manner of the doctors drives me bazonkers. That's not
Mm,
a word. I just made a word.
I love
Bazonkers.
it.
Yeah.
Bazong.
Because any doctor who's going to
Yeah.
say, oh, by the way, Lucinda, you're going to have X and you're going to have Y and you're by 30, you're going to do this and you're not going to live. All of those seeds of despair that are planted. I mean, that is just cruel to do that to a person who just got a diagnosis, let alone somebody who is just 17 and hears about this new thing that they are just trying to wrap their head around. And then you go on to tell them you're never going to have children, you're never going to do this. I just think that is such a disservice to the power of healing, to the power of our belief, to the power of making a lifestyle change that could completely reverse things. It is the brain and what we do as our own health advocate. That's the term I like to use, to be our own health advocate. Not to say that you have to discount every doctor, but partner with them and don't just take everything they say for gospel truth, Take what they say, add it to a little of your own common sense and your own research, and then decide on for yourself what is the right approach. And sometimes it's what the doctor suggests, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's not.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? We are lucky to have access to medical supervision and assistance that can help in so many ways. And often, yes, sometimes actually you might need to take this or do that, or they have experience of dealing with certain things. However, I think we live in a world where every day someone comes up with a new symptom, a new side effect, a new, way that their body isn't working right. And actually, this focus on trying to find labels and put people under umbrellas and in pigeonholes, as you say, it's not actually that helpful because really and truly, if we go back to the root cause of what causes most people to get sick, it's on the whole trauma of some description or some sort of fear that's actually impacted the body in such a way that it's gone from the parasympathetic state into the sympathetic state and become a hostile environment. And it was interesting talking earlier about the scarcity mindset.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do I do a lot of self-care tools to try and keep myself "Ooh, it's very safe here." But I've got a new flat that I'm living in, and unfortunately, it's cost a lot of money, and I've had to put the money onto a credit card, and that's not nice because although, yes, I'm paying it off, I hate being in debt. And so one of the things I know that I'm gonna have to do in the next 6 months is actually do a lot of tapping on that scarcity feeling, and also probably talk to actually to find a mentor or someone to help me just rephrase the messages in my brain because when we don't realize how we're responding to things, actually, that's when they can be most devastating to us. So, yeah, we've got to be careful. Careful of the words we use.
So true. And there's so many things. I mean, I was taking notes as you were talking because there's just so many things that are just so beautiful about your story in the way that you decided not to be the victim, that you decided to wait. I like life. I think I want to engage in life. And I love that you took ownership for understanding your story. What is Lucinda's story and what kind of things does my body, my liver, my new liver need in order to be in its best place? And your story might be different than the person next to you, even who also has a liver transplant. So we're all so unique. Each individual is so unique. And I think that's part of the power and the reason we need to be a self-advocate for health, for living our best life, for letting go of stresses and hurts and forgiveness, all of those things that we need in our life in order to make our life the best it can be, and to use that energy to influence and impact other people along the way, because we're all on a journey, right?
Absolutely. And actually taking time to sit in the moments when you have a chance, actually, even if it's just when you're boiling a kettle. I was saying to someone the other day, making a cup of tea is actually a hugely healing practice, because that minute or so that the kettle's boiling, take a moment and just stand in your kitchen or wherever you are and think, am I thirsty? Am I tired? Am I in need of some air? Do I need to stick my head out the door? Do I maybe, after I've had my cup of tea, need to read something? Or should I listen to some music? What is my body needing right now? Because often, especially for women, we're so into this, like, gotta get it done, gotta organize, gotta help, gotta look after whatever. We've stopped listening to what the body needs. And so often I've found in my actual situation of kind of comfort eating, I'm not hungry, I'm actually thirsty.
I think it's just all so powerful because listening to our body is a process. And so many people don't take the time to stop, like you had said, and listen and just learn for what kinds of language our body is using to tell us it needs things. It is not something that comes naturally. And to your point, especially busy moms and women in the world, and even men who are all really driven to succeed, we forget to stop and listen to what it is that our body and ourself, our health needs to stay strong. So that's a very wise word to learn how to hear what our body is saying.
And, and I think what's really interesting about the connection that we made was that we were doing this course together, and I was kind of on the scout for people who were facing a health challenge or had some story of healing. And you you were someone who actually has walked this walk, has experienced this kind of thing of searching for the rhyme and the reason behind how you're feeling. And you've actually now reached a point in your life where you have improved the quality of your life through self-care tools. And I just thought, actually, yeah, that's just so inspiring. Um, just amazing to meet someone who's actually having a life and actually seeing ways that they can improve it, which is amazing and
Thank
super
you.
inspiring.
Well, it's like you had said earlier, it is absolutely a journey. It's kind of like, you dust the house and in another week you got to dust again. Or you shower and in another couple of days or a day you got to shower again. Well, health is so much like that. You get healthy. It's a continuum, you're moving either toward health or toward disease. So you're constantly either taking steps toward health. But then when you can't just like, okay, good, I'm healthy. Now I'll stop. Because then you just slide back toward disease again. So it is a journey. You have to take conscious decisions every single day.
Mhm.
And you're never fully healed and wahoo, you can just completely check out of that thought process. I think it's a continuum of constantly learning how to hear our body, like we were saying, how to listen to what we need, understanding how certain foods affect your body, and how do you feel after you have a big meaty hamburger? Or how do you feel after you have a salad? Or how do you feel after you have that huge sugar rush? So it's a constant learning process. You had said that earlier in your story about how you just embraced that your circumstances were an opportunity to learn and to just dive into what was happening and what kind of root causes you could get to. And that's the piece that makes me a little bit sad about Western medicine. We are amazing at liver transplants and bone settings and hip replacements and all of those amazing architectural things in our body, right? With getting to the source of a chronic illness, we are not very good. We cover symptoms well. We have lots of great medicines that cover symptoms. But when it comes to something chronic that is constantly gnawing at you like that stone in a shoe, you have to take a different approach. And I think each individual really needs to step into understanding how their body reacts to things, because no doctor in a 15-minute meeting or 20-minute meeting is going to get that whole picture and get it right. They just don't have that background. They don't have the years of experience that you have with your own body. So we do need to step forward and understand ourselves.
Yeah, and then just to kind of support that, I would say that what I've realized is actually the best person to heal yourself is yourself. Because as you say, you've lived with yourself long enough to actually say, well, hang on, I just ate 3 Lindor truffles. Do I have a sugar hangover now? Yes, I do. You don't need a machine in your arm. It's helpful to see an app, but you don't need one to see that that's spiking your glucose.
Right.
And when we were just talking about the healing, you're not healed, it's actually sort of daily practice. It's a bit like when you talk about the fasting lifestyle. People don't say, fasting, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle choice. And actually, stepping into a healing journey is stepping into a healing lifestyle choice. It's
Mhm.
about making those decisions to actually drink as much water as you can, to try and get sort of, however many hours sleep you realize you need.
Mhm.
And it's about finding ways for you to step into this kind of like, actually, I need to be calm. I need to not have drama in my life. I need to make sure that if there is going to be stress, I can step out of it or I can actually deal with it. And when it comes to actually the Western healthcare setup, especially in the UK, where the NHS are under a huge amount of strain, if we had more preventative measures of actually teaching children in school things like tapping and meditation and mindfulness, which I think those two are coming in slowly, that would help reduce the anxiety, which then helps reduce the stress eating, which then helps reduce the self-harm, which then reduces the number of people who need to go on antidepressants, and the number of people who then can't do work. And it really all can be just very gently just softened and made easier by the education of youth and children about looking after yourself, about making smart decisions. I've got my nephew who's almost 4, and when I was growing up, my darling grandmother, she would bring me chocolate buttons and things, and I now realize, like, yes, Christmas is coming and he might have a few chocolate treats, but actually it's about having the little things of grapes. It's about making little batons with carrots and making hummus exciting. I find hummus very exciting. 4-year-olds, not so much. Um, and trying to get him to, in his life, take on little bits and pieces that actually then will help him as he grows older. And I've tapped on him since he was a baby. When he was going to sleep, I would just be tapping on him just very gently to calm him when he was in the crib. So I'm hopeful that actually as he gets older, I'll teach him that. And with the meditation, I'm going to be doing research into actually just how we can just sit for a minute or two and just be calm and peaceful and then get on with stuff. I've managed it with my dog because she'll sit for a little bit at least now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we need to step into being a patient advocate for ourselves, into patient responsibility, and w- go and do the work on ourselves and also on finding the healing practitioners, the modalities, the possible supplements we might need if we discover that actually we are low and deficient in some things. A lot of the people who I'm sort of in contact with who are offering courses and offering ways of helping people heal, they actually use things like measuring hair samples, they measure glucose levels, they get people to do blood work because
Mhm.
actually it's functional medicine. It's actually doing the things to do with the body. But then they also sit down and they say, okay, well, when you were younger, did you have trauma? Did you have a situation where your parents got divorced? What could actually have been things that led to your body feeling like it was under attack? And once you've actually got to those root causes, then you've actually got a way of actually working on them to reduce the emotional charge of them. So,
So true. So true. And what you were just saying there, what I think we often forget is everything in our body, every piece of our body is connected.
mm,
So a bad relationship can affect an organ. A bad, stressful situation can affect part of our body. Just everything in our body is connected. We can picture it when your body is out of alignment or when you've got a shortened tendon or something. You can see how the balance of the entire body gets off. Well, that could create a pinched nerve, and then that creates another stress response and all these different chain reactions that happen in our body. And to your point about giving our kids the tools like they don't know how to deal with emotions and stress, and they're never taught what tools they can use. We don't encourage them to journal and write poetry or do music or
Oh,
tap or any of those
yeah.
things. We don't teach those things for these beautiful young souls who some of those young people are really dealing with some very stressful situations, but they don't know what to do with all of that pent up stress and emotion.
Yeah.
And I think one other thing about what you had said, I think is so valuable for our listeners to understand that when you choose a healing journey, that doesn't mean that you never have a truffle again. It doesn't mean that every night you're getting 8.5, 9 hours of sleep. It
So,
doesn't mean perfection. I think we do, especially so many women have kind of that type A personality that I'm going to do it all. I'm either all or nothing, man, you know? But
and
when it comes to healing, it's not that. And you really have to do a mind shift, almost like a mind reset for how you're thinking about health, because it's about making, again, think of that continuum. Either you're nudging yourself toward health or you're nudging yourself toward disease. You didn't get cancer overnight. Your liver didn't turn cirrhosis overnight. None of this stuff happens in a second, unless you're in an accident or something like that. Things happen slowly over time, and you can slowly reverse that process as well. But again, it's low. So it does require patience and persistence. Just ask yourself to make more better decisions than you make worse decisions every day. Nudge that bar toward healing. You make 3 good decisions and 1 bad. Okay, hey, that's a win for that day. You make 5 decisions that are bad and 1 good. Well, okay, tomorrow do better. So give yourself the freedom to say, okay, every day is not going to be perfect, and that's okay. I'm on a
mm,
journey. Just want to move a little bit toward health today.
absolutely. And for a long time in my sort of like post-transplant, I had this whole sort of, well, I mean, there will always be slight survivor's guilt because I'm here and she's not. But I was like, right, I'm going to have 5 things that I need to do each day. I need to drink 2 liters of water. I need to go for a dog walk. I need to meditate. I need to do Duolingo. I need to do my fasting, and I need to write a list, and I need to write a chapter of my book. And I'd come up with like 10 things that I'd need to do in one day. And if I didn't do at least 4 or 5 of them, I'd just be like, oh my goodness, I failed, I failed, I failed, I failed, I failed. And slowly over time, I was like, hang on, just like calm yourself down,
Stop the
girl.
madness.
That is a lot of stuff because like each of those things, they take time and they take effort. And so now what I do is I have like a diary, and what I do is it's got sort of hours in the day.
Mhm.
And I start my day off, and I often say at the beginning of it, like, what is my intention for today? Do I want it to be a day of productivity, or do I want it to be a day of healing, or do I want it to be a day of dog training? And I just set an intention. And then I just try and do at least a little bit of exercise, drink as much water as I can, and I meditate. And those are my 3 things that I try and do each day. Anything else is a bonus.
Nice.
And the great thing if you're forgetful and you feel sometimes you're not achieving enough is if you actually write down as you do things in your little diary, when you look back on your day, even if it's just you sent an email, I sent an email to him, or I checked my banking, or I did this, or whatever, you start to see how actually your life is very full and you are very busy and you are achieving. And okay, you might not have finished your
Mhm.
book, or you might not have illustrated this, and you haven't done your Christmas cards, and you haven't soaked your fruit, but it's okay. It's not a race. You can actually just take your time. And one of the things that I've learned that's really kind of stuck with me is everything happens at the right reason, at the right time, and you'll see why eventually.
Mhm.
Because so often I was like, well, I haven't met the one, and I haven't done this, and I haven't done all my travels and the rest of it. And especially when it comes to relationships, if you're sick, it's really hard because you're trying to be like going out and meeting people, but you're not 100%. You realize if you meet someone, you have to explain your health condition and how it challenges you. And what I realized, I realized over time is actually until I feel more comfortable in my kind of recovery journey, and I've got my podcast out there, and I've actually finished illustrating this little book I'm working on, I'm probably too busy to meet someone. And I'm actually needing to finish my stuff before I start taking on the stuff of someone else. So there's no point beating myself up about being single. Enjoy what it is, which is actually being able to give myself time to do the things I need to do to help heal myself, and also to give back to the people who've loved and supported me through the ups and downs of the journey I've been on.
Mhm.
So yeah, just if you're out there and you're sick and you're single, don't beat yourself up about it. actually it's probably your body saying right here and right now, you need to be selfish, you need to self-care, you need to love yourself, and you need to be spending time working on you getting the good night's sleep and not staying up late binging on Netflix and the rest of it, and eating popcorn with sugar in it and things. So, yeah, quite important people to take on.
So many good things here. Oh my goodness. And we're going to just definitely have to have you back on the show, Lucinda, because there's much like all of our texts that we have shared back and forth so many times, which every time I get one from you, I just light up. I am so excited to hear from you. But much like that, I think we could talk for the whole morning and and not get to the bottom of it. But I so cherish the time with you, and I so appreciate your authenticity and your vulnerability and your just openness about the pain and the journey and the healing and the different modalities that you're experimenting with to try to find what really works well for you, and the tips and the ideas that you shared with our audience of just, journaling different things, kind of being your own patient advocate, taking life and not letting the circumstances overcome you, but take and own your life, live it as if every day is your last, and really having the vibrance of life is so important. So I know that you've got a podcast you're launching. Tell us a little bit, how do we find you, and how do we find your book about little Lucy and her transplant? How do we locate all those great resources?
Oh, bless you. Well, and just one final thought is, if you do have a diagnosis, don't let it define you. You should define yourself through what you love and what you're passionate about, because that's how people will remember you. And yes, Lucy's Liver Transplant is available on Amazon on the Kindle app. There's about, I think, 9 different languages. And then hopefully towards the latter end of next year, and I'm going to say it so that it will come to be, will be released Tap on Teddy, which will be my EFT book for children. And the goal is to take that into schools late 2024, early 2025, to actually teach children tapping and hopefully try and reduce the stress that they're experiencing so that they don't end up like me as I was as a child, because I was a worrier and I worried too much about things that were never going to happen and really didn't matter. And if I'd had tapping, I probably wouldn't have got so anxious and ended up with an autoimmune disease.
Wrapped it all up in a 10-second summary. I think that's going to be beautiful. I think it'll be a wonderful resource for kids and for parents, for kids for kids to feel empowered that they have something they can do about how they're feeling. I just think that's a beautiful gift you're going to give hundreds and thousands of kids, hopefully, and that they will just have, it'll just be a wonderful gift. All right. So that healing feeling, do you have a website or email or anything? We could put that in the show notes as well.
Oh, yes. The website is this healing feeling, and we are on Instagram, or you can find us at This Healing Feeling. And if anyone has any stories, either about their own healing, the journey they've been on, or know any practitioners who've had experience helping people, I'd love to hear from you, because actually it's finding these stories that can inspire others that will really help to make a difference for people who are struggling and who are in places where they're feeling like, oh, well, I'm all by myself. You're not. There's a lot of other people out there going through a similar thing. And so really, if we can actually share the joy of the fact that there is hope out there, that would be wonderful. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, Lucinda, thank you again so very much for your time, your story, and your inspiration. It's definitely a story of encouragement, and look forward to having you back next time.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Take care.
Isn't Lucinda just such a lovely soul? I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I've got a few takeaways to wrap up for you here. Number 1, be in the now. Let me encourage you to see and realize that we really only have the now. We can't control the future and we can't control the past. So if or when you get a diagnosis or some big life event, try not to panic. That doesn't help anything. So sit in the moment, drink in the reality, all the things that you have and that you are grateful for, and remind yourself that you are not a victim. Really, it's actually how we respond to the situation that will make the difference between whether we sink or swim. And the hard things will teach us over and over again just how important and how beautiful life is, and how every single moment has beauty in it if you're willing to look for it. Number 2, life happens in chapters. Everything happens at the right season, in the right timing, and you'll see why eventually. The experiences that we have offer us a chance for expansion. It may seem trite because it's said often, but it's really valuable to live each day with the appreciation that we don't know how many chapters we get. So enjoy the day and make decisions that will eliminate any regret. Resolve the conflicts, forgive the wrongs, take advantage of those opportunities to travel or explore, make decisions in a way that will allow you to look back and know that you have no regrets. Number 3, don't make choices today that will eliminate future chapters. Remember, when Lucinda was 17, she thought she was going to die, and she just leaned into it. That's going to be it. I'm going to die. But then things changed later in life, and she fell in love with life. And now she's changing the world one little life at a time. And so no matter how hard things are, don't make a permanent change that will eliminate your future chapters. What you think you will never want in the future today might be exactly the thing you want when you arrive at that next chapter in your future life. Number 4, why don't we talk about organ donation and transplants more often? I will add miscarriages to that as well, or any hard medical reality for that matter. Gently, kindly, and respectfully sharing our experiences with others can really help us by allowing others to understand what kinds of things we might be going through. But it also may help them, as the person we're visiting with might have a similar challenge or know somebody who has a similar challenge, and your story could be exactly the encouragement that they need to hear. Number 5, life happens and death does happen. But even in the mourning, when we're mourning the loss of a loved one, we can be grateful for the beauty of the spirit and the legacy and the memory of those people who have had such a huge impact on our lives. That part of loving someone will stay with you forever. Number 6, every person has a story, and every experience is something we can learn from. And when it comes to healing, we need to believe we can heal. Believe it, feel it, visualize it, and will our bodies to heal. But we also need to take patient responsibility, be our own self-advocate, knowing our bodies better than any other doctor possibly could, and what we need to live our most completely healthy life. Health is a choice. Stepping into a healing journey is stepping into a healing lifestyle choice. And number 7, whatever your diagnosis may be, or may not be if you don't have one, don't let it define you. You can define yourself by what you love, what you're passionate about, what you're good at, what you're great at, what your talents are, all the unique gifts that you have. Because remember, those are the things that people will remember you by who you are, not by the diagnosis label that you've been given. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends. You never really know how the encouragement that you give your friends might hit them just exactly in the way they need it that day. And if you would, please take a moment right here to write a quick review wherever you're listening or watching this episode. I read every single one of those, and I'm so grateful and thankful to all of you who have already written such nice reviews. So thank you very much for that. And if you haven't written one, please take a moment to write a review today. Thank you for listening. God bless your day and make it a great week.